solid here at Pro Tour Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This is a pod featuring Seth Manfield, who is starting out 0-2 in this tournament. These two players, though, sitting pretty at 2-0. Cain Rianhard versus Justin Warden. Let's meet the players. Cain Rianhard, one top finish there. That's the Pro Tour March of the Machine top 8 that they have there. Top 8 in 2022 Mox Season 3 as well. A very excellent player that we keep seeing around the top tables. Then Justin Warden here, no top finishes. Why? Well, this is their first Pro Tour.
Wow.
Congrats at starting out 2-0 at your first PT, qualified in Chicago at a PTQ. Those are the players. Tell me about the decks, Corey.
Okay, so yeah, starting with Cain, looking at Cain's deck, pretty solid here. They have Dance of the Tumbleweeds, Bandit's Hall, Hard Bristle, Bandit as kind of the way to fix all of this kind of all over the place deck. It is Golgari based, splashing all the really good cards, and there is some power here. You have Geralf, you have a couple other rares, and just solid removal spells. So as long as Cain's mana base works out for them, I think, you know, the deck is very strong, but there is that challenge of making sure that the mana cooperates.
All right, maybe some tough mana there for Cain. What about Justin?
Yeah, Justin's deck should be a crime because
Nice.
it is so incredible here. I counted 15 ways to commit a crime
wow.
in this deck with absolute
Vial
powerhouses like
Smashers?
Gisa, yeah, Karavek, we have Rakdos joins up, and there's 3 Vial Smashers, a solid 2-drop, as well as 3 Raven of the Fell Omens. If you said draft up a perfect Rakdos deck,
Yeah.
this is it.
Yeah, I'm very jealous.
Yeah.
This is impressive. I want to play it.
I want to play that right now. Can we borrow their deck after
Yeah, we'll
this
ask,
to just
we'll
like
ask,
play?
we'll
Yeah.
ask. All right, everyone, it's time to see who's starting out 3-0 here at Pro Tour Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Marshall and Monty, take it away.
Thank you, Maria. And yeah, we had the same reaction here in the booth that they did at the desk when we saw this Rakdos deck in the hands of Justin Warden. This is like the crime of the century level deck here. I mean, this thing, every single time outlaws or crimes happen, you're just going to see many value explosions happen on the battlefield. And this is going to be a very, very tough one for what is ultimately a kind of clunky deck in the hands of Cain Rianhard.
Yeah, and you know, showing up to your first Pro Tour and getting a deck like this in the feature pod, Justin Warden, extremely happy. Cain has a hard road ahead of them. This is a very strong and consistent deck on the other side, and Cain's deck does have some power, but they aren't going to have the easiest time here.
Let's see how the play draw plays out here as well. Cain would love to have a little bit of breathing room, and it looks like they do actually have that here. So Swamp Go from Cain. Justin, same play.
Yeah, Cain definitely has a pretty low curve, though this hand didn't reflect it immediately.
Wow, that was a nice draw.
Great draw.
Hard Bristle Bandit off the top, but it's, oh, Skullduggery needs 2 targets.
This has to...
Yeah, you have to target your own and their creatures, so Justin actually can't use Skullduggery to kill the Hard Bristle Bandit.
Noticeably, you can... it's tough, you know. You do need to have that creature down first, so you can do it later, but
Yes.
that's the time that the bandit has already done its job at that point.
It's also a nice little piece of information for
Yeah.
Cain to know, as they're now going to be, okay,
Keep
well,
it off the board.
right, if there's something that I can do to
Like this clear
remove your
shot.
target, if they're, yeah, exactly.
And Cain can actually go tap this, use clear shot, the crime untaps, and you can still go land newt after.
Oh,
Ultimately says, I don't need it.
just going to run out the newt. Interesting. That seemed like a pretty explosive turn. Now, it does feel not so great, right, to use a legit removal spell. In fact, one of the better removal spells around.
For a Raven.
Right.
Right.
So I could see that a little bit.
It's a nice tempo play when you're not the tempo deck against the aggressive deck. It really sets them behind, especially when you know they have the Skullduggery that they want to cast. But I think when you're in Cain's seat, just opting to keep the clear shot, the more powerful removal spell for later, is pretty nice.
Interesting sequence here as well for Justin, as he plays a Desert Ping, another Ping, but also is attacking.
Yep.
The newt sitting there looking rather threatening, and Cain, they know about just the Skullduggery due to that misstep by Justin. I'm just going to take it.
Yeah, Justin, he's not as worried about his life total. He's the aggressor. Kane's deck is pretty mid-rangey. With no cards in the graveyard for the Newt to flash back, I think Justin doesn't feel his hand forced here and can really wait for Cain to develop the rest of their turn before opting to do something. This Desert Stew, yeah, you took 2 extra damage, but doesn't really matter in this spot.
Good use of mana here by Justin as well. Using the Desert Stew to completely tap out, which could leave a double spell turn later with, you know, the Skullduggery or something like that.
And so far, this has been maximum value for Justin.
Okay.
He committed a crime on his turn and on Kane's turn during that cycle. So this Raven got 2 triggers. And that means Justin's life looking quite good, and the pressure is mounting on Cain. And with 3 Ravens and 3 Vial Smashers in this deck, those tiny pings are always going to add up.
Combat.
Okay, now we're finally going to see
I think this has to be the clear shot now.
the clear shot's going to come out, and there's going to be a little bit of a punishment here for Justin as well.
Yeah, that
As he
should
decided
kill
to-
the Apothecary.
He decided to play the Apothecary pre-combat.
Yeah, wanting to get that life link is
Get
going to
the-
be 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, now you're going to lose it to the clear shot, and the Skullduggery doesn't kill the bandit.
This trigger's still on the stack, so I'm going to get the life link here.
Well, you target it when it goes on the stack,
Yes.
but I'm assuming that that's what
Skullduggery resolves.
happened there.
What?
This
Skullduggery
is
resolves.
also going to save the bandit.
14, 19.
I gain 1.
It's lifelink. You gain 3.
Just want to make sure I like to look quick.
Ah, the crime trigger may have been missed from the Raven.
Okay. There was a lot that
Okay.
happened in that
All right,
sequence.
it got mentioned.
Did they get it? Okay.
All right, it looks like the crime was caught, the lifelink was caught,
Okay.
so
Draw.
I believe this should be 22, but it looks like both players have written down 20, so I guess not.
Okay. There's land number 4, mana number 5 here for Cain. Should mention, by the way, that these players are both 2-0 in their pod.
Yep.
These are players from our first feature pod, the one
Stacked
that we
pod.
started with Seth and Martin Yuza as
Yep.
2 of the big names at it.
Whether or
And
not
they've
they'll
had a
like
slightly
it or not.
bumpier road, Marty.
They're at the bottom. They're both 0-2. They are fighting to make it out of this draft pod unscathed. So, you know, Justin, first Pro Tour, tough pod, but gets a great deck, piloting it well, and is sitting here in the quote-unquote finals of the draft pod at 2-0 and in a pretty good position the first. There we go. There's the lifelink now caught, so 22 on the board. You can't really miss that one once the damage has been dealt, so fortunately that is
They've caught up to Monty.
corrected. I was sitting here a little anxious, you know, I'm like,
I saw you give me a look like, are they going to do it? Or it's not optional. Let's see what Justin Warden has for this turn.
Looking at Kane's hand, they do have Hollow Marauder with 1 creature in the yard in the Newt. That is a 6-cost creature right now, but only 5 mana for them. 5 mana is enough for Unfortunate Accident with both spree modes.
We announced the lifelink trigger, but we never.
Yes,
Exactly. So I should
So
get
we have
20.
22 to 13.
22 and 13. Yeah, I think that's what would
Okay.
be.
My turn. You
Wh-
passed it.
Once, can you make sure that the judge call is put in?
Yeah, we'd expect.
Okay, and then I'll start the timer then.
I'll untap and draw.
Okay, so just a quick clarification there to get those life totals correct, but now we're back underway. Justin with land number 5, and he's got a fairly defensive hand with double explosive derailment and then the prickly pear to add something to the board.
Well,
Go ahead.
you should go.
Yeah.
He passed?
Yeah,
I'm surprised he didn't just run out the prickly pear here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Justin is overly worried about from Kane's deck in this spot to want to leave up Explosive Derailment. It does feel like you as the aggressor should be taking the more active route here.
I will kill this.
Trigger the crime from the Raven. So there's another drain.
Yeah, so a little bit of a flurry of activity on the end there. Ultimately,
23.
it is going to leave just a mercenary left behind for Cain, but another trigger from Justin as on the way out there. Down to 11 falls Cain.
And notably, even though the bandit is dead, it is mana neutral for the Hollow Marauder because a creature in the yard does reduce its cost again. So now it's a 5 mana creature. So Cain is still in the same spot where they do need to find a land. Finding one of the blue cards in their deck, they are a 4-color deck, not where you really want to be in that spot. And this is the big issue from Justin's deck, is he can always rebuild.
And that's what he's going to do here. Double spell turn. That's always nice. Prickly Pear. And another Raven as well.
I think maybe one reason Justin didn't go with the Prickly Pear last turn is his deck is, you know, winding down, not fully. There's still a lot of cards. But there's 3 copies of Vial Smasher. Maybe thinking if I can wait a turn, hold up this removal spell, maybe kill this creature to take you off of blue in your 4-color deck, and I untap and I draw a Vial Smasher and go Vial Smasher, Prickly Pear to you.
Oh.
That is how you get a bit more value out of your cards, and maybe that's the dream that he sort of tried to set up for as a numbers game.
He also did get that last trigger from the prior Raven by doing it this way. These are small edges, but they do add up quickly. And it looks like Justin's going to use up his last removal spell, that Derailment.
That was a binding negotiation from Cain. I think that took the Derailment out of Justin's hand. He's saying, hey, I have 1 card isolated, I'm going to get rid of it.
What did he find here?
That's Consume the Ashes.
Okay.
And that's pretty big because it's a removal spell clearing off the way and dealing a crime, committing a crime, excuse me. But also, because there isn't a target for this varmint to get sacrificed to, that creature is exiled. The Hollow Marauder in hand still costs 5, so Cain is still in the same position where they need to draw a land off the top.
That Hollow Marauder would be nice.
Yeah, Surveil 2 in the bin.
Combat?
2 lands go away. And then the team comes in, and this is a big turn here for Rianhard. They need to find a land at least to get that Marauder down, but any type of decent blocker, something would go a long way.
Yeah, is that a land?
The man,
It is.
Oh, it is.
That
And
is
it
blue.
happens to be blue as well. There's Intimidation Campaign in hand. That feels like a little too slow at this point, though. The Hollow Marauder gets you a nice 4/2 flyer and get you a card as well in this particular scenario.
The unfortunate part is the Marauder will have to trade with the Raven if Justin opts to use that Mercenary to buff it. You're not really shutting down the board. So Justin can continue pressuring. Yes, Cain picked up an extra card off the Marauder.
Oh, and right off the top, boy, that Surveil 2 really worked out well for Justin.
Raven trigger.
He finds a Consuming Ashes of his own. That is going to send another Hollow Marauder away, and we're in chump block or trade and barely survive territory. I have to say, though, those triggers, oh, it looks like he actually pumped.
Yeah, Cain went to block, and Justin's like, no, this targeted the Raven. Let me move this to the side here. You don't have a block there.
This is a non-lethal attack, but Cain Rianhard facing down defeat next turn if they can't find something to help stabilize.
Intimidation Campaign, really great card when you're in the driver's seat. In this spot, really rough.
Too slow, doesn't affect the board.
Yeah. Now, if Cain is able to go Patient Naturalist here,
looks like
find a land.
Bandits Hall into Naturalist.
I think it needs to be Naturalist into Campaign. I don't think you can afford to play this Hall.
Yeah.
I think you need to hit the land into the Campaign. Okay.
And there it is.
Step 1. You have a 2/3, and you have Campaign potentially going.
Okay.
There's a lot more steps to this plan.
A lot of things need to go well here for Cain, but this is the sequence that starts it.
Yeah.
So draw a card, back up to 4. Justin's back down to 20. Pass the turn back. Something good off the top could do it here for Justin.
Hall is basically a blank card here. And Justin has Cain back down to 3 with that Mercenary. So 1 crime, if Cain can't do anything here, will get the job done.
Cain has Outcaster Trailblazer, probably an early pick. But again, not quite what is needed.
Bandits Hall.
Yeah, Bandits Hall. And
Trailblazer.
Trailblazer.
I believe should have done that in the other order, but it's not going to matter here.
I think
Maybe
Cain
considering
may be
plotting
saying the
this,
same thing.
but yeah. It's not like they have anything, but, you know, you get to represent an extra mana. It's one of those things where it's like, doesn't matter, but technically correct play.
And it is actually going to get plotted here.
Okay.
So a trigger
A trigger.
would be
Any
game number
prime.
1.
That's-
And there it
that's
is.
the prime.
Wow, that's actually 2 damage worth. Okay, and there we go. Game number 1 goes to Justin Warden. And I got to say, that wasn't even the good part of his deck.
No. We
Like,
did not see a
those
single
were the
Wild Smasher
normal
that
cards.
game.
No Vile Smashers, no Karavek,
No Gisa.
no Gisa. If those are the ones that start hitting, it's going to be way worse for
But
Cain Rianhard.
this game looks like a mulligan to 5 for Justin.
So we have an actual game.
It says opening has 6, so maybe
Okay.
we missed a bit of information here, but we see 5 cards. There's a Vile Smasher, there's a Prickly Pear, that's the Dream Curve, but none of the removal spells that we saw Justin put to such great use the previous game to clear off the way for those attacks. I think a big part of this game plan from Justin's deck is get some creatures down, you start getting these pings in, use those removal spells for a few turns of attacks for 4 or 5, and then try to ping out the rest of the damage even if your opponent stabilizes the board.
You see the Voracious Varmint there for Cain. It's going to get in with Vigilance, knock Justin down to 18. But there's the perfect curve there. Prickly Pear following up
1-2.
the Vile Smasher. So ping ping. Now, as you imagine, this is nice to have an extra couple of damage. Also, the fact that Justin has 3 copies of Vile Smasher may lead you to down paths where you're trading it off for random varmints.
I believe that's Fake Your Own Death coming out of the sideboard from Cain here, just trying to clear off any creature you can off this board.
Theoretically good against the black-red deck, you know, just a blanket removal spell at some point, though you did see Consuming Ashes, so
2 of them.
yeah, a little tougher, but still.
Justin potentially representing a second Vile Smasher in hand by making this attack, hoping maybe Cain wouldn't go for the trade, considering Justin is already down on resources. Cain saying, I'm not the aggressor, I can't afford to play around that. And
There it is.
the muscle.
The muscle's back on the board again, thanks to that treasure token that Cain had. They are able to cast the Overzealous Muscle, and it is the biggest thing on the battlefield. Raven?
And I think that's a Desperate Bloodseeker. Probably
You're right.
target Cain. Ooh, no.
Look at me.
Going to give up the crime.
Was that Karavek there?
Karavek and another Raven go to the graveyard. Filling up your graveyard for Karavek, great. And
But
obviously,
not with Karavek.
your opponent having Hollow
That's tough.
Marauder in their deck, it does incentivize you not to mill them to put creatures in the graveyard. But of course, with the Raven, committing a crime has value to it. So Justin playing a numbers game, not the best mill on yourself, but that is how things go.
There's an Oasis there from Cain. That'll be a quick ping, but nothing else.
Crime committed.
Prime committed. Yeah, no, that's true.
Our muscle getting a little more zealous.
12.
There weren't great blocks. Now there's really not good blocks for it. And so Justin's just going to have to take it down to 12.
Look, the muscle does more or less one thing. It does it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life draw card.
Notably, still no crime committed.
Combat. Yep.
Another copy of Vault Plunderer in Justin's hand.
All 3.
And one breaking news card, but I can't get a good look at which it is, unfortunately.
13.
Yeah, this is one of those positions where chaining Vault Plunderers together just helps build out your board and gets you closer to those really powerful bombs that Justin has access to. One of them happens to be in the graveyard, but the rest aren't. There's land number 6 now.
Vault Plunderer, Raven, and
And the Hollow Marauder
something.
hits now. It's gonna, ooh, it's gonna hit a Vault Plunderer.
Crime committed. Yeah. Cain has an attack here. It wouldn't trade off, but the question is, can you afford to have this chumped and then have a big attack come back the other way? second Raven into Desert Stew. Ah, the hearse, Marshall.
Oh, that's what it is.
Out of the sideboard, that is
unlicensed hearse.
repeatable crimes.
That's right. Tap to commit a crime.
One graveyard, I don't know.
It's a little too late for the Hollow Marauder stuff, but that's just not the stage of the game that we're at. Hollow Marauder was nice there, by the way. Got a spell out of Justin's hand and drew Cain a card.
Yeah, the hearse is a great way to commit crimes. Unfortunately, Justin tried to go for one of your cards and one of my cards in order to be able to have repeatable uses of it, because right now Kane's graveyard is empty. But it is a single graveyard. So had to exile both cards from Kane's graveyard. And that means unless something dies, which Justin has a way to kill something, there is no way to commit a crime next turn, potentially. But this is scary.
Yeah, you see those two Ravens sitting there just dying to chip away at Kane's life total, especially if that hearse can keep going.
Raven, one of my favorite commons in the set. Really unassuming. Does a lot of work.
And certainly well built around here. Yeah, that is out of the sideboard for Justin. That's a sweet sideboard option.
Kane's hand is very strong here.
Fake Your Own Death, Clear Shot, and Unfortunate Accident.
I believe that's the second copy of Fake Your Own Death. So Cain really using their sideboard well here.
Anticipating a grind.
Fake Your Own Death, excellent on Hollow Marauder, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when Justin goes for this Desert Stew on his turn, Cain has every blowout available to them.
Yeah, and the Marauder dies. Like, it is easy to kill, it's easy to target, it is often dead. All right, so what's going on here? The Ravens are in.
I believe the Mercenary buffed one of the Ravens. Now they're getting in. Justin, Cain probably considering Clear Shot here. I would assume targeting the 2-power Raven.
Taking a look at Clear Shot there. Excellent card.
Yeah.
Performed well anytime it's been printed.
Great art. Of course, you do want to do it using the muscle. And
and this is so brutal. This is consuming ashes, and this is the argument against.
and 2 crimes.
Fake Your Own Death.
Yeah, you can't fake your own death there. So 2 crimes committed. That's the double drain. Clear Shot goes to the graveyard, so on Cain's turn, Justin can use the hearse, exile that. That's another 2 crimes, another 2 drain. This is... Things just got really bad.
That Consuming Ashes was exactly what Cain needed Justin not to have.
Yeah. And it was off the top. We knew Justin's hand was the Desert Stew. Really unfortunate. Cain needs a second black to cast the Unfortunate Accident as a removal spell. Doesn't look like they have that. That's awkward. Has Fake Your Own Death still. And, okay, Justin missing the crime at the end of Cain's turn.
Oh,
that's
okay.
big.
Okay.
That's 2 damage for free that just got missed. And in a game of this close margins, that is huge. Cain would have been at 3 here.
Now we see 2 triggers from crimes plus the Bristling Backwoods trigger, so that's 3 damage down to 5.
Okay,
Is
so
there any way out here?
if Cain makes a Mercenary with Unfortunate Accident, they can go block your Vault Plunderer, block the 2-power Raven, take 3 down to 2, and then
And buy it back with Fake?
on their turn, no, you can't cast the Fake. You don't have enough black mana. You have to
only
make the
one
Mercenary to
swamp.
survive. So you lose both of your creatures, and you're down to 1 with the hearse on your upkeep, assuming Justin sees it. So they can survive by making a Mercenary, but that Desert Stew is still there. So as soon as Cain uses this to make the blocker, I think Justin will just Desert Stew and close out the game.
This has been really interesting because we've seen Justin be more or less in control of each of these games. These Ravens have been really annoying for Cain Rianhard. But the funny part is that Justin has a whole other part of his library that's even more powerful.
Yes.
That does even more, and we didn't even get to see it.
Yeah, Justin milled his own Karak this game. Never drawn his Gisa. And, you know, in the average format, Gisa probably a top 5 rare in that format.
Sure.
Completely ridiculous card.
Agreed.
In this format, you know, probably top 20. The power level's a bit higher here on Thunder Junction. We've got a lot of outlaws and rebels and villains making their homestead known here.
And making themselves known.
Yeah. Not only Justin letting Cain go to blocks with this Desert Stew, not opting to close out the game here. All right.
Probably won't matter.
No, but Cain will get to untap here.
Right.
Go ahead.
So Cain would be at 3, right?
Cain is at 2.
Oh, Cain is at 2, but only one Raven left.
Only one Raven left, so with the Desert Stew and the hearse, or with just the hearse, Cain does need to get this Raven off the board, and I don't see a way to do it.
Yeah, and that's really the key.
Yeah. I think Cain will have to go Geralf here, Binding Negotiation U, and the Raven remains alive, and the game ends as long as Justin remembers to use the hearse.
Finding negotiation, trigger girl.
Respond. I will exile 2 cards from your yard. Creature and this.
Drain you for 1.
Trigger.
So there's 1 trigger down to 1, and that's going to do it. Justin Warden in impressive fashion. I have to say, that deck was excellent. That was the best deck that you and I had a chance to see easily.
That's the best deck we've seen across multiple pods so far. And, you know, it's got to be said, first Pro Tour, already incredible accomplishment, but to sit down in a pod of that caliber with those players, and you know what? Play really well. 1 missed unlicensed hearse activation on an end step. Other than that, incredible play from Justin. Really just measured. And if you're playing like that in your first draft of your first Pro Tour, that's pretty promising.
It's a good place to start, and Justin ultimately wins what is a very difficult pod. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll have more limited action here from Pro Tour Outlaws at Thunder Junction. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour Thunder Junction. Marshall Sutcliffe with Monty DeVuti. Thank you so much for joining us here in Seattle, Washington. We are wrapping up our draft coverage here on day number 1. We're in the 3rd round, so we're kind of deciding pods here. This is where the 2-0 players from the 8-player pod meet in the finals, and each 8-player pod produces 1 3-0, and we're getting to see those here. We just watched our main feature pod, but we've got multiple feature pods this time, including Nathan Steuer versus Muhan Yu here from their pod, and they are meeting up once again at 2-0. Now, we did get a chance to see Nathan a little earlier today, and take a look at Nathan there. What was his deck like, Monty?
4 colors.
4-ish colors.
Pretty powerful.
Touching,
Yeah.
Two color base.
Yeah, the Sword of Wealth and Power, which we didn't get to see, but Laughing Jasper Flint and Archmage's Newt both did pretty good work against Calcano. And another part of power that we didn't see from his deck in that first feature match, 2 copies of Satoru the Infiltrator. So definitely some powerful rares to his name here. On the other side, for you, it looks like he's on Grixis.
He's on Demir, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe there is a slight red splash. There's at least 1 copy of Hypothesisal in the deck.
Okay.
But it is a very light splash. It's off of just 2 Jagged Barons.
Okay. So he's looking to go long game here. He's got Vault Plunder to kick things off, as you can see.
All right, Marshall, here's a card that I haven't seen played that much in this format. Tell me what you think about it. Nexus of Becoming.
Are we going to see that here?
It is in Muhan's deck.
I'm interested.
Yeah? Are you buying what it's selling?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Anytime I get to draw an extra card a turn, I'm purchasing.
Okay, all right. Look, in a matchup like this one, where Nathan is also a greedier, bigger deck, I think it could be good.
I would call Nexus a very matchup-specific card.
Yeah.
I would not want it against most matchups.
It is
but
one I would
want
be
it in
scared
potential.
to main deck, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I draw a card. Only this.
14.
Okay, things flying around here as the players are playing very quickly. I can appreciate that.
Zombie poker.
All right. Rictus Robber of You's own with the token. So
And take a look at this board state all of a sudden for Muhan Yu. 4 creatures versus 0 for Steuer. What is going on here?
well, I think Steuer went for a block there with Rictus Robber of his, and Muhan Yu had to take the fall to just immediately end the game. I keep both my creatures, you lose your only creature, I develop 2 more, and that's all she wrote.
That was an absolute beating. Wow. Muhan Yu picks up game number 1 in short order. We're going to head into game number 2 here. You can see both players starting with 7 cards in hand.
Table B, game 2 is
That was impressive.
That was pretty impressive, and Muhan Yu, a player we have seen before, continues to put up great results, and 2-0 in this pod. A very stacked pod, by the way. One of our 4 feature pods, so not our main feature. And up against Nathan Steuer, one of the best in the world. Up a game.
Yeah, Muhan Yu, somebody I definitely have my eye on here as an up-and-comer.
1 damage.
Thank you.
Your turn.
You can see the Servant of the Singer there.
19.
Definitely a slower start here from you. Not the aggression that we saw in the previous game, and not the aggression you typically expect from Demir decks.
Similar start here for Nathan Steuer with the Rictus Robber getting plotted a turn early. Land number 3 now for you. Last turn, it was a likely freshly drawn desert there. And now we get to see what the first real play of the game is here for you.
I see a Geyser Drake. I think there's a copy of Tyrant's Scorn in Yu's hand as well.
Oh, we're going to see more plotting here from both of our players. This is getting interesting. Both players kind of a little cagey about how they want to go about things. Nothing, I think we're going to see some explosive turns down the line.
And that's an interesting one to plot as well in the current situation where you have nothing in your graveyard. I wonder if I missaw the Geyser Drake in Yu's hand, because it would be a tough ask, in my opinion, to play this here unless Yu's plan is to just not present a creature for Nathan to be able to remove and go Rictus Robber. And say that sort of turn would be too much for me to come back from, so I'm going to keep my board clear in this spot for that reason.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, if Muhan takes a hit, it's 1.
Yep.
You can live with that.
Yeah. It's definitely, that is the kind of hit you can come back from.
And did you see that? That was a long tank there from Steuer, who finally just said, fine. Fine, fine, fine.
You
I
got
will play
me.
my Rictus Robber.
Part of the reason
I mean, that was only a 3-mana robber and no land drop there.
Steuer doesn't have a 4th land.
Right.
I think if you were developing, if you were getting ahead, you wouldn't feel forced to play the robber in that spot. But when you start missing land drops, okay, I need to close out this game.
So is there a way, though, going forward here for Muhan to take advantage of the lockpicker? Looks like it's going to be nothing, and then go upkeep.
Stop it cold. You don't want to get Phantom Interference on your turn.
Right.
So,
and this is why the upkeep happened. Now, the Phantom Interference does happen, but that's going to take out effectively all of Nathan Steuer's mana for the turn.
all right, getting a better look at Muhan's hand. I believe there is a Phantom Interference of his own there, along with a breaking news card that I can't quite make out, 2 lands, and I think that Geyser Drake that I saw initially.
Okay.
Trigger.
This is a decent attack for 5.
And crime has been committed, so Nathan can go Demonic Tutor for a land, for example, here, if he wants to develop, given the situation that he's in.
Yeah, if faced with missing yet another land drop, you would feel that that's probably the only option.
It looks like he's considering a Stop Cold, which makes me think he's found the land, he just hasn't played it yet.
Which is also, of course, possible here.
Right. Stop Cold and Consume the Ashes among the cards pulled to the front here that he is considering.
And this is a tough decision here for Steuer. You see he goes through his whole library, pulls a couple of cards to the front, then goes back to his hand to consult that to see what is it that I need? How does this game play out over the next turns? What can I make of the lockpicker over there? Is it going to be an issue for me, or is it something I don't need to worry about? Oh, I didn't see quite what Nathan grabbed there.
So how many cards left?
Also interesting to not play the land first, to not let Muhan know whether you did actually search up a land or not. Okay, it's going to be the Newt, it looks like.
Okay.
Land Newt.
Not the best graveyard in terms of flashback value for the Newt.
Muhan's going to take a quick look. Archmage's Newt is a weird card.
Yeah.
Requires kind of many different things to come together, but if they do, it is very powerful.
The effect is incredibly powerful. The saddle cost is incredibly high because it needs to be.
And it's just a 2/2.
Right.
Like there's no flying, there's no nothing.
No evasion.
But we have seen it get through already today, and if it does, free spells out of the yard add up really, really quickly.
Really quickly.
There's your Drake.
Phantom Interference in hand for Muhan means that should Nathan go for example that Stop Cold or Consuming Ashes that he was considering tutoring for, Muhan has the counter spell here to keep this Drake alive.
Good news for Nathan Steuer is that the big 4/3 gets to keep smashing, as the Geyser Drake isn't going to be able to do anything about that.
Is that a repulse?
That's a castable repulse as well.
Castable repulse thanks to Geyser Drake.
This is going to be end step here for Muhan Yu. Nathan Steuer's end step, I should say. And repulse is going to send the Rictus Robber right back into hand and get a card there for you.
Marshall, imagine a card if you would. 2 and a blue. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card on a 2/3 body. Is that, what kind of effect would you say that resembles?
Oh, it reminds me of my favorite kind of effect.
Oh, yeah?
A mana war effect, if you will.
Well, now with this lockpicker and that repulse, we've got built your own mana war going on over here for Muhan.
We
Should
did
go
it.
for it.
And you get a card out of it, too?
That's just value.
There's a Daring Thunder Thief on what I presume is end step here for Steuer.
Yeah, we're countering that one. Make a 2/2.
And going to get the 2/2 also.
Yeah, this is... You don't love bouncing a Rictus Robber in that spot.
Right.
But Nathan's mana is pretty accounted for here. So when he's missing land drops and he's potentially tutoring for a land, Muhan doesn't know if that servant went and got a spell or a land.
Right.
So if Nathan's tutoring for a land, forcing him to plot for another turn, not develop, not attack, or just play out a 4-mana 4/3, those are all good options when you've got a strong board cooking here. And if Nathan just plays the 4/3 again, well, there's that mana war effect coming out from Muhan, and that's a big tempo swing.
Yeah, I think that Muhan actively just wants that to be the case, and I think that Nathan knows that and is going to avoid. Back over to Muhan Yu after plot. Just taking a look at the scene now. Just the Archmage's Newt across from him. Once again, Muhan's going to take a look at the Newt. It is, again, a curious card. And it has the ability to kind of do nothing for a while, but if it can sneak through, it gets real ugly, and you don't want to leave yourself down to that. That's why the Geyser Drake is once again going to stay back. Even though Muhan has 4 power in the air and could start just slamming, he's going to play it conservatively here.
And that is a good card to slam here. Marauding Sphinx coming down. The Newt is exactly what you said. It's unassuming, but it has the potential to turn a game around like that. So you have to be aware of it at all costs. You have to respect it, which is a lot of value to be gained from a 2-mana 2-drop blue card. Is your opponent respecting it this much going late into the game? That is a card that is pretty good.
Yeah, the Djinn of Fool's Fall there also just looming in the plot zone means that, yes, that Newt can get saddled. It's not going to here. This is a nice turn, though, for Nathan Steuer.
The Outlaw Stitcher coming down after the Djinn. That makes a zombie with some extra power.
Yeah, it's going to have 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it, so that's clean. A 1/4, a 4/4, a 4/3 flyer all hit the board this turn for Steuer.
Ripe for the mana warring. Draw a card,
Yeah,
commit a crime, surveil twice. You know.
They're not going to necessarily stick around for very long, but
yeah, but they're all there. They're all
point.
part of the party. I think what's interesting is how aggressive Muhan sees himself in this spot. The value play is bounce the zombie token because it's permanently gone.
Right.
Hit you for 3 with my Vigilant Sphinx, leave back the Geyser Drake. But you could bounce the Djinn, put more tax on Nathan's mana. If Nathan doesn't hit a 5th land, he might just have to plot that again and not even play it. That's 2 turns with no flying blockers that you get in for 5. So Muhan could ignore this zombie if he feels like his hand plus his board make up the more aggressive playstyle for the rest of this game. But if he thinks this game is going to continue going on, you might just want to bounce the zombie and say, I want you to permanently not have this. That's a resource gone. I'll take my bajillion for 1. Let's move on.
Yeah, and you can see the life totals are going to play into that as well. Muhan is behind on life at 9. That's Hypothesizzle there for Muhan. So we can dig up.
I believe he hasn't played a land this turn, so if he can still go land, he can still go Lockpicker plus Repulse as well.
And you see he does actually discard a non-land card. That's going to be 4 damage wherever he'd like. As it turns out, it's a Djinn of Fool's Fall that's going to take the hit. And there is that land drop that you mentioned, Monty.
And Marshall, unless I'm seeing double, I think there's a second Lockpicker in Muhan's hand for that Hypothesizzle potentially next turn. This is getting out of hand.
This definitely is. And you were right. That is a second Slick Shot Lockpicker. That one has been sitting there since turn 3.
The threat of it is honestly more valuable here than the actual effect for Muhan. The fact that whatever Nathan does has to play into the consideration of a Hypothesizzle, of a Repulse in the graveyard, it's just a lot of value.
4/4 is going to come in, and Muhan has to make a decision whether to block with his 5 toughness Sphinx, but he's decided against it.
Yep.
He wants to maintain his threat. He does fall down to 5, though.
He does fall down to 5, but Nathan is not in the combination where you're going to get burst out of nowhere most of the time.
Right. You need to see red
Yeah.
usually for that to happen.
And Nathan has a little red. Muhan knows Nathan has a little red. But the cards that Muhan has seen and knows from Nathan, they're not going to be doing the job of bursting him out of the game.
Upkeep.
Upkeep.
Muhan presenting the upkeep for Nathan. In case you want to do anything.
That's called professional courtesy.
Yeah. Look.
All right, let's see some fireworks here, Muhan. Going to start things off with 1 Slick Shot Lockpicker. And we're going to see, oh, God, I love Repulse. So good.
You can resolve the triggers.
And again, professional courtesy going both directions here. Nathan says, go ahead and resolve those triggers, my friend. What did he find?
2 loan sharks. How do we feel about 2 loan sharks, Marsh?
Oh, I like Muhan use position here. Muhan's looking to be in great shape to take a 3-0 out of this very difficult pod.
Should be able to.
I wonder,
We see consuming ashes there from Steuer to stem the bleeding a little.
this might not be your type of deck in terms of what you would draft, but like, is there a more Marshall Sutcliffe deck in terms of the play patterns that we're seeing right now?
No, this is it. This is what I want. This is me. Muhan Yu, I am vicariously living this dream with you. And he's doing it, by the way, against like one of the best players going.
Yeah.
You know, like this isn't just, you know, I'm going to screenshot this on Arena and send it to my friends. Like this is the PT against Nathan Steuer, and Muhan Yu is doing it all.
Yeah, a year ago, Pro Tour Mom, Nathan won that Pro Tour. He was the standard champion of the Pro Tour last year. So this is, you know, not the defending champion.
Right.
But this is the title that he last got.
You're playing a guy who has a card with him on it in this set. Like,
in this set. He's the guy. He's the duelist.
And you're doing loan sharks and lock pickers and repulses are getting flashed back, and it's got to feel good to be Muhan Yu right now.
I think Nathan's getting out of this game pretty soon. You see the, let me consider this card, and I feel like we're pretty close to a handshake now.
Yeah, this is a really tough one for Nathan because, you know, one thing to look at is just the land counts. Nathan has been unable to even consider double spelling, let alone deploying the things that he wanted to on a timely fashion. He was on 4 lands for up until last turn.
And I gotta say,
the ward
Marshall,
like is really annoying. You know, these little things add up. What were you going to say, Monty?
I love how Muhan Yu plays. He just took out the Hypothesis and the Phantom Interference from his graveyard, put him beside the Lockpicker. He's like, I don't need to gain any value from hiding information. These are the cards that I could target. These are the relevant cards of my graveyard. We're just playing Magic. I just want to play Magic. If you're making decisions, keep these relevant cards in mind. You don't need to go to any extra effort. I will make the decision-making easy for you.
This is also, I think, it's a sign of respect on some ways of saying, you know, and I know,
Yeah.
so let's just not.
Yeah. Let's focus on the Magic part of the game.
And that is going to do it. Muhan Yu picks up the 3-0 in a tough pod, defeating Nathan Steuer in impressive fashion. So perfect start for Muhan before we start to transition over to Standard.
Really, really impressive stuff from both players. Those were tight played games, and Nathan, really no slouch, getting a 2-1 out of that deck, which 4 colors is tough. It's definitely possible in this format, but it's tough, and he doesn't have some of the biggest haymakers that we're used to seeing in these 4-color decks, no Bonnie Pulse, etc. Still a 2-1.
Yep. And we've seen blue a little bit maligned in this format. It's in that bottom couple of colors, but doing really well there. We've got one more match to bring you here. We've got Alexander Hayne and Chris Ferber facing off against each other. And again, these are finals of their pod, just like the last one was.
Yeah, Alex seems to be on...
Oh, look at that.
He seems to be in Thunder Junction form here at Pro Tour.
He is
Thunder
pulling
Junction.
that off. That
Oh, yeah.
mustache and that hat.
No, it works. It definitely works.
Chris has the cool beard too. He like a little more effort on the accessories, and Chris could definitely be there as well.
Yeah. And Chris, you know, a relatively newer name in terms of the pro scene compared to Alex, who
Yet
won
I
a Pro
keep
Tour
seeing
12
him in
years
these
ago.
limited finals.
He's really good at limited. This man keeps putting up 3-0s and 2-1s in these pro-level limited events.
As you can see, we are in game number 2 between these two, playing it once again for their pod at 2-0. Taking a quick look at the deck list here to kind of get an idea of what's going on. I see swamps and mountains here for Ferber.
Alex is on a teamer deck, kind of. It's mostly green, but there are light splashes of blue and red for Hayne.
This is interesting because this is a sideboarded game, but I'm looking at Chris Ferber. This says swamps and mountains, right?
It sure does.
And you see what I see here? 2 planes on the battlefield.
I see planes.
So we had a transformative sideboard for Chris, I'm assuming.
23. I agree.
Yeah, this
A little curveball at old Alex Hayne here.
interesting. 2 copies of Thunder Lasso in the sideboard. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, this is Chris saying that I've transformed my deck. This looks like a full transformative sideboard coming out from Chris Ferber.
Chris making the really difficult decision to play 2 copies of Vital Law. Okay, okay.
20.
Okay, an attack here from Hayne is going to knock Ferber
Ooh.
back down to 20. Oh, but there's Pest Infestation.
Controlling that.
This is when a card's really good in old formats, or vintage cube or something like that, and it makes an appearance in limited, there's a good chance that it's going to be great, and it is awesome. Even here, you know, scales well with the game, but anytime you can find a target for it and get the things, you feel like you're getting away with something.
It is very, very strong. You know, there are, on these bonus sheets, on the crime sheet, for example, there are some cards that don't translate super well to this limited format, right? Reanimate, complete powerhouse and cube, just fine in this format.
Oh, I like it.
Not a big bomb.
Come on, bring it up a little.
All right, okay, it's good, but it's not, you know, that same level. Pest Infestation, it translates.
Yeah, it's interesting because Pest Infestation is so good that this is a very typical level of artifacts and enchantments that you see. It's not a pushed theme for any archetype or anything like that, yet you'll have a target often enough. It is a high value target, and also the hidden mode on Pest Infestation is you don't even need a target.
Correct. It is up to. So if you just need to make some creatures and there's no target, just make some pests. I think that's... Is that 3 copies of Snakeskin Veil in Alex's hand?
Yep.
Am I seeing that right?
Triple.
Yeah, he has 3 registered,
He's
2
got
in the
'em all.
main deck. This is all 3 in the hand now.
These are the safest pests you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Don't even try to kill one, Chris.
I don't... How does Chris get through this
I
board
do not know.
with 3 Snakeskin Veils?
Oh, and it's another missed land drop here for Ferber, who passes the turn back to Hayne. And looks like he found a beaver there. This is going to be very difficult for Chris if he can't find something
I think this
quickly.
game's over.
Although Alex, it looks like he's content to just sit here behind his wall of snakeskin veils.
Yeah, Chris went for the Unscrupulous Contractor the previous turn. Sacrificed the Bloodseeker trying to find a 4th land. Didn't find it. Missed again that turn. Does have 2 copies of this Aven Interrupter that came in out of the board with the switch to white.
So, and he does play one on end step, but unfortunately for Chris, Alex was not going to play anything into it.
Not
so it's
interested.
just a 2/2 flash flyer in this case.
This is really tough now for
Alex,
Chris.
too clever.
This type of game feels really bad. When you have no board presence and your opponent is just passing with 5 cards in hand, you know they have something.
Totally. And Alex does. I mean, he drew that beaver he could have cast, but he's just too smart. He knows.
Right.
Okay, this is that homestead again. The mobile homestead actually kind of starting to get there. Another missed land drop here from Hayne. He's got an absolutely stacked hand. Now, does he want to leave the veil down, as it were? Because, you know, he would like to resolve a beaver, just some other 4-drop, and then just have the ability to protect it. He has waited a couple of turns, and that hasn't happened yet.
Attack. If Chris goes crew, block, you go double Snakeskin Veil, save my creature, go. Maybe happy to take the trade. I think Alex drew Railway Brawler that turn. Another one of the best cards in the format. You know, it's arguable whether Bonnie Paul or Railway Brawler is better.
Yep.
But, yeah, Alex has a lot of tools to work with here.
Okay, so Alex says, sure. We'll get that homestead out of here. Also, with somebody missing land drops, it's nice to get the homestead off the battlefield.
Oh, definitely.
Let's see what Alex wants to do, though. Is it time to deploy? He does have a board advantage on some level and also is pressuring the mana of Chris Ferber quite strongly here.
Yeah.
And he's actually going to go for plot on his big bomb.
Yeah, you don't need to leave up mana to protect pests. But I think one thing that Alex has seen from Chris's deck, there's a lot of removal in this deck. There's 3 copies of Desert Stew.
Oh,
if Chris
yeah.
starts deploying those, if Chris finds a desert as a land, then that could really snowball out of control. So Alex says, okay, you can remove these pests, but you're not getting my Railroad Brawler until I have Snakeskin Veil up.
That's probably going to do it, right? It's hard to imagine that the game can continue for very long with the Brawler out that has double insurance policy against it.
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things that the plot mechanic lets you do, and why I think a lot of high-level Magic players connect with this kind of set and this type of gameplay, is it gives you a lot of agency to make these plays, and you feel much safer being able to have this many options in your gameplay.
Well, there it is.
And notably, because the Interrupter is in play, it does still cost 2 to cast the Brawler from exile, even though it was plotted and not exiled to the Interrupter itself.
It's annoying, but it leaves Alex with
2 green.
Forced.
What does that represent?
He can't even cast all 3 of his Snakeskin Veils. this
Unlucky.
turn. Like,
Just bad beats.
should have played around it, I guess. There's no sweeper for Ferber, right? Like,
Not that I saw. I think he has the second Thunder Lasso in
yeah,
hand.
he doesn't have it.
So maybe he tries to get aggressive here. Go for Thunder Lasso, tap down your Brawler.
I was looking for a final showdown, but it is not to be found in his list.
It's a pretty good card, though.
It is one of the other best cards in the set. There are many. You may have heard Monty and I mention that term multiple times today. And if you think that we're being too nice on those cards, go look them up. You'll agree. You'll be like, wait, no, that is really great.
Check out the set. It's really fun.
It is sweet.
I think Chris is about to lose the game. I think he has to go for Thunder Lasso, tap your creature, get in. And I think with the Brawler having reach and Hayne going Snakeskin Veil, it's going to just completely end the game on the spot.
Combat. 5, tap the Brawler.
I say no, and I think Chris concedes.
Yeah, and Chris knew. I mean, you know, everybody here watching should know that Chris was not surprised by this. He probably is even thinking about the second copy, well, maybe not the third, but at least the second copy of it as well.
He played to his outs.
Yes.
He's like,
this was a situation that he felt forced into. He said to himself, if this works, this gives me a chance to actually win the game. I don't think it'll work, but if I sit here, I'm going to lose to this Brawler anyway.
a small chance. These are the cards in my hand. I'm going to try to win the game because this is the Pro Tour. It's probably not going to work. I will probably lose the game, and that's the line available for me.
And I'll tell you, that's the sign of a very, very good player that knows when they need to make what they would normally consider a bad play, and they have to do it anyway. And that's what happened here. Alexander Hayne, 3-0 in his pod as well. So he picks up the victory to put a capper on our draft coverage here, at least for day number 1, of course. So we will be back.
Yeehaw, partner.
You know, that suits you too. I don't get it. Why does everybody look so cool in these cowboy hats running around? I guess it's just what it's like at the Thunder Junction. Alexander Hayne, he put on his cowboy hat and he got the job done there. He picks up a 3-0 before we transfer over to Standard. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll have Maria at the news desk. We'll see you there.